It was one of those evenings where the sky seemed undecided, half covered in a golden glow, half swallowed by clouds heavy with rain. On the cracked sidewalk of a quiet American town, Daniel Parker walked with the slight limp that came from years of hard work in construction. In one hand he held a paper bag of discounted groceries, in the other, the tiny hand of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Daniel wasn't a man who complained. Life had been hard, yes, but he had learned long ago that bitterness was heavier than poverty. His wife had passed when Lily was just a baby, leaving him with both heartbreak and responsibility. Since then, every day had been a battle between survival and fatherhood. Still, he found ways to smile, at Lily's laughter, at the warmth of his dog waiting at home, at the small kindnesses strangers sometimes showed. That night, as they crossed the park on the way home, Daniel noticed a woman sitting alone on a bench. She was dressed simply, yet there was an elegance about her that couldn't be hidden. Her posture was strong, but her eyes, dark, glassy, distant, told another story. She looked like someone carrying too much inside. Lily tugged at Daniel's hand. "Daddy," she looked sad. Daniel paused. He had a rule: never walk past someone hurting if he could offer help, even if it was just a smile. He approached gently. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Are you all right, ma'am?" The woman looked up, startled. And in that instant, Daniel froze. Time folded back on itself. That face, it was older, sharper, framed by success and years, but it was a face he knew by heart. "Claire," he whispered, almost not believing. Her lips parted. "Daniel?" It was her. Claire Bennett. His first love. The girl he once dreamed of marrying, back when the world was wide open and the future seemed theirs to shape. They had lost touch after college, she had chased ambition, he had stayed behind to care for his ailing parents. Their paths had split, and he had never seen her again. Until now. But what Daniel didn't know was that Claire wasn't just successful. She was one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country, a billionaire whose name appeared on magazine covers, whose empire spanned across industries. And yet, at that very moment, she was falling apart inside. Claire had spent years building walls instead of a home, closing deals instead of opening her heart. The world saw her as untouchable, a symbol of triumph, but she had never felt more hollow. She had everything, except peace. And when her last relationship crumbled in betrayal, when the board meetings turned into battlegrounds, she found herself wandering into the very park where she once dreamed of simpler things. Seeing Daniel again felt like a collision with the past she had buried. His clothes were worn, his hands rough, but his eyes, those steady, kind eyes, hadn't changed. They still carried warmth, a grounding presence she didn't realize she craved until that moment. "Wow," Daniel said, trying to gather his thoughts. "It's been decades. You look amazing." Claire gave a small laugh, but it cracked halfway. "And you haven't changed at all." Lily peeked from behind Daniel's leg. "Daddy, who is she?" Daniel crouched to his daughter's level. "This," he said softly, "is an old friend of mine. From a long time ago." Claire knelt too, her eyes softening as she looked at Lily. Something inside her ached at the sight of the little girl, the innocence, the purity of joy she hadn't felt in so long. "Hello, sweetheart," she whispered. "You have your daddy's eyes." They talked a while, catching up on years lost. Daniel spoke humbly of his life, raising Lily, working odd jobs, losing his wife. He didn't say it with pity, he said it with quiet strength. Claire, for the first time in ages, found herself listening. Not as a CEO dissecting words, but as a woman hearing a man's heart. Yet she said nothing of her own struggles. Not of the empire threatening to collapse, not of the loneliness clawing at her chest, not of the gnawing thought that despite all her wealth, she had nothing real. As the evening deepened, rain began to fall. Daniel offered his worn jacket to shield her. She hesitated, looking at the threadbare fabric, at his shivering daughter. But Daniel insisted. "You need it more," he said simply. That single act pierced her like nothing else. Here was a man with so little, still giving. Still selfless. Still the Daniel she once loved. The next days brought an unexpected turn. Claire began showing up at the park again, sometimes, by chance, sometimes not. She started walking with Daniel and Lily, sharing small talks, laughing at Lily's jokes, and even eating simple sandwiches Daniel made. Slowly, the ice around her heart began to melt. Daniel never treated her like someone larger than life. He didn't know about her billions, and even if he had, it wouldn't have mattered. To him, she was still Claire, the girl who once danced barefoot in the rain, who once dreamed of painting sunsets. And for the first time in years, Claire felt seen, not for her wealth, but for her soul. But inside, she wrestled with fear. What if Daniel discovered who she really was? What if he thought she pitied him? What if their fragile reunion shattered under the weight of her secret? The breaking point came one night when Daniel invited her to his modest home. The small apartment smelled of warm soup and old books. The furniture was second-hand, but the space pulsed with love. Lily showed her drawings stuck to the fridge, proud as any child could be. And when Daniel sang Lily to sleep with a lullaby, Claire felt tears spill. "This is what I always wanted," she whispered to herself. After Lily was tucked in, Daniel poured Claire a cup of tea. "You've been carrying something heavy," he said gently. "I can see it. You don't have to tell me what it is. But I just want you to know, whatever it is, you're not alone." The words broke her. No one had said that to her in years. She wept, and he held her, not with desire, not with demand, but with quiet compassion. It was then she made her choice. She told him the truth. At first, Daniel laughed. "Come on, Claire. A billionaire? You're pulling my leg." But when she showed him her name on her phone in an article, his face went pale. He looked around his tiny kitchen, at his worn clothes, at his calloused hands. Shame burned in his chest. You're way out of my league," he said quietly. Claire's heart clenched. "Daniel, don't say that. I'd give it all up just to have what you have. Love. Real love. A family. I built an empire, but I can't even build a home." Silence hung heavy. Daniel looked into her tear-streaked face. And in that moment, he realized. Money had never been the measure of worth. Kindness was. Humanity was. The very things Claire was starving for, he carried in abundance. He reached across the table, took her hand, and whispered, "Then let's build one. Together." The story didn't end with grand gestures or headlines. It unfolded in small, steady acts. Claire found peace in helping with Lily's homework. Daniel found strength in Claire's laughter returning. They began stitching their broken pieces into something whole. And slowly, Claire's empire no longer felt like a burden. With Daniel and Lily by her side, she reshaped it, not as a fortress, but as a force for good. She invested in schools, shelters, families like Daniel's. She used her billions not to shield herself, but to lift others. Daniel, once the poor dad with nothing, had given her everything. Not riches, not status, but love, humanity, and a reason to breathe.